I found my 12-year-old grandson, Oliver, hunched over my hearing aid in the garage, working under the dim glow of a desk lamp. It was well past midnight. He didn't even flinch when I asked what he was doing. He just glanced up at me with those serious brown eyes and whispered, "Grandma, you'll get it once it's done." The next morning, I popped the hearing aid in like always. And for the first time in weeks, I could hear clearly, clear enough to catch my son Gary's voice from the kitchen low, but unmistakable. "Yeah, the agency says smart, quiet kids like Oliver go for a good price. Once mom's tucked away, I can sell the house and finally move on." That's when it hit me. Oliver hadn't just fixed my hearing aid. He'd saved both our lives. Let me back up a little. My name's Vivien Thompson. I'm 75 years old and have lived in this same house for over 4 decades. It's where I raised my boy Gary, and now it's where I'm raising his boy too. Oliver came to live with me when he was 4. His mother packed a suitcase one Tuesday morning, left a note on the counter, and disappeared. "I can't do this anymore," it said. Gary found it after work. I still remember him standing in my doorway, holding Oliver's little hand, tears in both their eyes. "Mom, I don't know what to do," he said. "I can't do this by myself." I didn't even hesitate. "You're not alone," I told him. "We'll figure it out." And we did. Mostly, it was just me and Oliver figuring it out. He was a scared little thing who refused to sleep in his own bed for months. I'd find him curled up outside my bedroom door every morning, so I started reading to him at night. Harry Potter first. Then we made our way through a mountain of other stories. He loved tales about kids who solved problems grown-ups couldn't. We planted a veggie patch together, pulling weeds between tomatoes while he chatted away about school and why birds fly south. He was sharp, always tinkering, always taking things apart just to see how they worked. At first, Gary visited every weekend. He'd take Oliver to the park, maybe catch a movie. But little by little, the visits got shorter, the excuses got longer. Work was hectic. He needed time to think. Eventually, the visits felt more like chores. By the time Oliver turned 7, Gary barely looked up from his phone during visits. "Dad, look what I made," Oliver would say, holding up a Lego castle or a drawing from school. That's nice, buddy," Gary would mutter, never glancing up. I watched Oliver try again and again to get his dad's attention. He'd plan little presentations for his school projects, hoping maybe this time Gary would notice. He never did. About 6 months ago, I had a small stroke. Nothing major, but it left my hearing patchy. That's when Gary swooped back in. He started showing up more often, twice a week, sometimes more. "Don't worry about anything, Mom," he'd say. "I'll take care of the appointments, the bills. You just focus on resting." But he started talking to me slower, louder, like I'd lost more than just my hearing. And he kept fixing my hearing aid, fiddling with it constantly. Somehow, it kept getting worse. Oliver noticed. He said he heard this weird high-pitched noise, and that I wasn't answering him when he called from the other room. He started keeping an eye on Gary quietly, like he always does. Even when I couldn't hear, I could see. Gary was always pacing in the kitchen, phone glued to his ear, talking low, angled toward the window. I noticed Oliver watching too, from the hallway. When I asked him about it, he said, "Dad talks different when he thinks you can't hear." He was right. The envelope came 2 weeks later. No return address, Just a thick manila packet Gary dropped on the kitchen table while I was doing my crossword. Just some medical stuff, he said, way too casual, nudging it toward me like a waiter handing over a check. Updates, new policies. He was already uncapping a pen before I'd even opened the first page. Take your time, but they want it filed by the end of the month, he added. I held the first page up, trying to make sense of the legalese. The words were familiar, but none of them connected. I looked up and asked, which insurance is this for? Gary gave me a smile that didn't touch his eyes. Your Medicare supplement. New year, new forms. You know how it goes. Oliver stood in the doorway, backpack half-zipped, his thumb hooked through the strap like he'd stopped mid-step. His eyes flicked to the envelope, then to Gary, then to me. Something about that glance made me set the paper down. I'll read it over tonight, I said. Gary's jaw twitched, but he covered it with another quick smile. Sure, Mom. Just don't misplace it. He left without drinking his coffee. Later that afternoon, Oliver came into my room while I was folding towels. He handed me a crumpled piece of paper he'd fished from the trash. It was torn and stained, part of that same envelope I hadn't finished reading. At the top, it said residential care intake, patient profile draft. I sat down hard. Oliver didn't say a word. He just stood there, arms crossed, jaw clenched like Gary's gets when he's losing control. I looked at him and said, "You did the right thing." He gave one nod, then walked out. It wasn't the first time Gary had handed me paperwork without really explaining it. There was a bank form once. A change of address slip another time. But this felt different. It had weight. For the first time, I felt it deep in my bones. Gary wasn't planning anymore. He was already acting. 2 days later, he pulled into the driveway with two strangers. They stepped out of a silver SUV looking like they'd just stepped off a home safety brochure. Both wore business casual smiles and clutched clipboards like weapons. Gary waved them toward the front door like he was hosting a house tour. "Mom," he said, walking in like he owned the place. "These folks are here for a quick safety check." Doctor's suggestion. I was still in my robe. The coffee hadn't even brewed yet. "Safety?" I asked. "Just standard," the woman chirped, already eyeing the hallway like she had blueprints in her head. "Slip hazards, grab bars, mobility access. Nothing major. I didn't invite them in. Didn't matter. They walked in anyway." While they wandered my house taking notes, Gary stood in the kitchen making one of his low-voiced phone calls. Couldn't catch every word, but the tone. That syrupy, too smooth cadence he saves for lying. Oliver stood by the stairs, arms locked over his chest. He didn't say a thing, but his eyes tracked every move that woman made, especially when she hovered in the bathroom like she was measuring it. That afternoon, Gary swiped the car keys from my purse like it was no big deal. "You shouldn't be driving," he said, tucking them into his coat. "I'll handle errands from now on." "Since when?" I asked. "Since your doctor said your reflexes were slowing." I didn't remember the doctor saying that. He left before dinner, took the spare house key without asking. The next day, I tried to log into my online banking. Locked out. 3 failed password attempts. When I asked Gary, he said, "I figured I'd get everything organized for you." "No need to stress." He said it with kindness. But I know that tone, it's the same one he uses when he's about to take control of something. Oliver started staying in his room more after that, not sulking working. I could hear the quiet clatter of his keyboard late into the night. He didn't talk much, but the way he looked at Gary had changed. It wasn't fear, it was calculation. Like he was mapping out a blueprint. A week later, Gary handed me a card with an appointment written on it. Geriatric evaluation, he said, far too chipper. Just a baseline, routine stuff. Medicare requires it. A baseline for what? I asked. Memory, coordination, just standard procedure. He replied smoothly, almost too smoothly. Oliver looked up from his cereal and asked, why does a doctor need to know if Grandma remembers who the president is? Gary didn't answer, but I saw that tight twitch in his jaw. Later that night, I found Oliver in the garage again, lamp on, soldering iron hot. My hearing aid laid open on a towel like a science project. Oliver, I said softly. He didn't even glance up. You'll understand when I'm done, Grandma. So I stood there a moment, just watching. His hands were steady, breathing calm, face glowing under the lamp. The garage smelled like dust and warm metal. I saw him press the tip to a wire and whisper numbers to himself. Then I left him to it. Some moments don't need words. The next morning, I went about my routine. Kettle on, dishes stacked, and I popped in my hearing aid like always. It gave a quick whistle, then settled. And then I heard everything. The click of the heater, the creak of the back door in the wind, and Gary, just down the hallway, pacing on the phone. He hadn't noticed me yet, yeah, he said, tone cool and businesslike. The adoption agency says there's a waiting list for kids like Oliver, quiet, smart, low maintenance. And once she's in the facility, I can unload the house. I'm done playing caretaker. He said it like he was talking about donating old furniture. I picked up a dish towel and turned away. Let him keep talking. Let him walk right past me, still jabbering, still blind to what I could now hear loud and clear. The front door shut behind him. Oliver stood in the dining room doorway. No backpack, no jokes, just those solemn eyes watching me. I touched my ear. It works. He gave a quiet nod. I know. How bad was it? I asked. He stepped forward and pulled something small from his pocket, a tiny bent wire. This was pulled out on purpose, he said. Not broken. Yanked. He gently tapped the aid in my ear. I soldered it back and cleaned the contacts. It should be working fine now. I noticed a faint burn on his thumb. He didn't complain. Since when did you know? I asked. He didn't rush his answer. The day Dad said he'd check the battery. After that, you stopped answering when I called from the hallway. He started making more calls when you were around. Didn't add up. We sat in silence for a while. The kettle clicked off behind me. I didn't move. What did he say today? Oliver asked. I considered softening it. Then I didn't. He's been in touch with an adoption agency. He said once I'm put in a home, he'll sell the house. Oliver stared at the table. His face didn't change. No tears, just a thin line where his mouth was. He reached for the hearing aid case, clicked it open, and checked his work like a mechanic triple-checking a gasket. We don't tell him it's fixed, he said. No, I agreed. We don't. He looked up. Can I show you something? He pulled out his tablet and played a video of a teenager explaining how to build a tiny voice recorder. It's small enough to fit in the hearing aid case, Oliver said, tapping the screen. Mic only activates when someone's speaking near you. It'll sound clean, right by your ear. I thought about Gary's voice in the hallway. How smooth he sounded. How sure. Not yet, I said. First, We listen. He nodded. Okay. We moved like it was any other morning. Dishes, trash. I folded 2 towels that didn't need folding. Oliver went upstairs for school, but I heard him stop halfway up, just listening to the house. Gary returned after lunch with another folder in his arms. He talked fast, all efficiency and charm. "Mom, just a few quick signatures," he said. "Insurance updates. Nothing urgent." I left the pen on the table and didn't say a word. The silence stretched until it made him uncomfortable. He pointed at a few lines I couldn't read without my glasses. I didn't bother putting them on. "I'll take a look tonight," I said. "Sure," he muttered. "No rush." He scooped the folder up like a gambler folding a bad hand. "Big day tomorrow," he added. "Don't forget your appointment." "For what?" "Baseline," he said, flashing that fake smile. "All standard." He left the folder. He took the smile with him. That evening, the air in the house felt heavy. Not loud, just tight somehow, like the hush before a thunderstorm rolls in. I made tea. Oliver brought his homework into the kitchen, pencil still in his hand, but not moving. We didn't say it out loud, but we were both waiting. At 9 o'clock, the porch light flicked on. Gary's shadow stretched across the shade on the back door. He stepped inside without knocking, phone glued to his ear. "Like always, yeah," he said, his voice low and slick. She can barely hear anything now. "We can get the papers done fast. I've got a spot lined up for her already." Words like asterisk facility asterisk and asterisk placement asterisk dripped from his mouth like nothing. He didn't know I was standing in the laundry room with a towel in my hands, hearing every single word. Oliver was crouched behind the fridge door, pretending to search for milk. The light hit his face like a stage lamp, pale and focused. When Gary hung up, we didn't speak right away. Finally, Oliver whispered, "So, what now?" I folded the towel in half, then again, smoothing it under my hand. "You're going to show me how that recorder works," I said. "Slowly. I'll take notes." He nodded. "We don't let him know." "No," I said. "We let him talk." Oliver picked up the folder Gary had left earlier and slid it into the drawer by the stove. He pushed it all the way in until I heard the wooden thud. Then he looked at me. "We'll need a place to store the files, not email, not the home computer." "My tablet?" I asked. He shook his head. "School uses that. I'll set up something else." He spoke like he was drawing a blueprint in his head, placing every beam, every bolt. I let him. He may have been 12, but he carried himself like someone who understood the stakes. "Grandma," he said, "you're not scared, right?" I folded the towel once more. "I'm awake," I told him. "That's enough." Before I went to bed, I stood in his doorway for a while. His Buzz Lightyear backpack hung on its hook. The quilt I made him years ago had a new seam, one he'd stitched himself, crooked, but holding. He was asleep already, hand resting open on the blanket like he was saving space for something. I turned off the hall light and went back to the kitchen, locked the door, set the hearing aid case on the table where the morning light hits first. Then I wrote 3 words on a sticky note and stuck it just under the lid where only I'd see it. Asterisk, asterisk, listen. Don't warn. Asterisk, asterisk. The house quieted again. Not the lonely kind of quiet, the useful kind. The kind you can work with. Tomorrow, we'd start with the mic. Tonight, I let the clock do what clocks do best. The next morning, Oliver came into the kitchen with the hearing aid case, and a little packet he'd hidden in his sweatshirt. Inside was a chip no bigger than a fingernail, a coil of wire, and scribbled instructions in his handwriting. "This is the mic," he said. "Tiny, one's on the same battery. Nobody'll notice." I watched his fingers as he worked steady and sure, not a trace of hesitation. The soldering iron hissed when it touched the contact points. The smell of melted flux filled the room. He didn't blink. Once he was done, he slid it across the table. "It'll record any time someone's close enough to talk. Everything goes into this folder," he said, tapping his laptop. "Private. Dad can't see it." I slipped the hearing aid into place and tilted my head. "So, it's recording now." He nodded. Right now. That afternoon, Gary showed up like clockwork. Paperwork under one arm, loud shoes on tile. He didn't even glance at Oliver, who was quietly drawing at the table. Didn't notice me sipping tea. He just started talking. "Yeah," he said into his phone, pacing the hallway. "The house could go for 800 easy. The agency's got families lined up, the kids quiet, no issues. Makes him marketable, like Oliver was a used car." I kept my head down and let the mic do its job. That night, Oliver played it back. Gary's voice came through crisp and clear, down to the squeak of the chair on tile. He still thought I was drifting on the edge of deafness. He had no idea I was collecting everything. Over the next week, Oliver built a system. Hearing aid recordings went into one folder. Screenshots from Gary's laptop into another. He showed me how he guessed the password. Gary's birth year, reversed. Too easy. Emails spilled out. Messages to the agency. Bank transfers. Even notes about a realtor he'd already contacted. "He's not planning," Oliver whispered one night. "He's already in motion." I nodded. "So are we." Not everything went smoothly. Gary started paying more attention to Oliver. Noticed him asking too many questions, hovering in rooms where he usually wasn't. One evening, I heard Gary snap, "Don't snoop, Oliver. Kids don't belong in grown-up business." Oliver didn't flinch, just dropped his gaze and bit his tongue, but I saw his jaw set stone still. That look didn't mean fear. It meant he was filing it away. Later that night, he whispered through my doorway, "He's getting suspicious." He hesitated. "If he tries to send me away." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. By the end of that week, we had enough, the full picture. Gary had already moved $50,000 out of my accounts. The adoption papers were filled out. This wasn't theory anymore. It was execution, and thanks to Oliver, I heard every step of it. Gary came by on Sunday with a thick folder. Dropped it on the kitchen table like a salesman closing a deal. "Mom, this is the last of it. Sign here, and we can finally put all this stress behind us." I slid on my glasses, slowly. Flipped the first page, power of attorney, then residential intake forms, and at the back adoption paperwork. Oliver leaned against the counter, arms crossed tight, saying nothing. "What's all this for?" I asked, voice calm. Gary gave me that toothy grin he reserves for when he thinks he's being clever. "Just standard documentation," he said. "Don't get caught up in the language, it's just to help me manage things. Doctors, finances, the house, you don't need that burden." I nodded like I was confused. "If you say so." He relaxed, thought he had me. That's when his phone buzzed. Without thinking, he picked it up and stepped slightly toward the window. still close enough for the mic to catch every single word. Yeah, I've got the papers right here. She doesn't even know what she's signing. Once this is filed, I'll have full control. She goes to the facility. The boy goes to the agency. The house gets listed. Then I'm out of here. Clean slate. I didn't move, just kept pretending to squint at the page like I couldn't make sense of it. Across the kitchen, Oliver shifted slightly. Met my eyes. He didn't smile, didn't need to. We both knew Gary had just given us exactly what we needed. When Gary ended the call, he tapped the pen on the folder. Well, let's sign tomorrow first thing. Then everything moves fast. I slid the folder back toward him. Tomorrow, then I said ... He nodded, left humming like he'd already won. The folder stayed on the table. The recorder was still running. The next week, Gary showed up again. But this time, he brought someone else, not clipboard strangers. A man in a crisp button-down shirt and a leather briefcase. He looked like the kind of guy who sold overpriced insurance to retirees. Gary beamed like he was proud. Mom, this is Dr. Lewis. He's here to do a quick evaluation. Just routine. I was sitting in the living room with my knitting in my lap. Didn't move. Just watched the man set his briefcase down on the coffee table like it belonged there. Evaluation? I asked. Dr. Lewis smiled the way people do when they already think they know the answers. Just a few questions. Ma'am, won't take long. It's for your file. Gary stood behind him, arms folded like a proud project manager. I nodded slowly. All right. The questions started off simple. What year is it? Who's the president? Can you remember these 3 words? Apple, chair, blue. I answered each one calmly. Let my voice drag just a little, enough to keep their assumptions going. Oliver sat in the corner with an open textbook. He wasn't reading. He was recording. When Dr. Lewis finished scribbling in his folder, Gary jumped in. You see, he said, she needs more support. A facility is the best option. Safe, reliable. Dr. Lewis nodded and snapped the folder shut. I'll write up the recommendation tonight. They both looked satisfied, like the whole thing was a done deal. I didn't react, just folded my knitting and placed it neatly back in the basket. Later, in the kitchen, Gary pushed the papers at me again. This time, there was no soft voice. Mom, these need to be signed today. You're not safe here. And Oliver, he needs stability. A real family. Oliver stiffened. I *am family, he said under his breath. Gary shot him a look. You're 12. You don't know how this works. I touched the pen, didn't lift it. What happens if I don't sign? Gary leaned in close, dropped his voice. Then the state decides, and believe me, Mom, they won't be as kind as I've been. He said it like he was being generous. What he didn't realize was that the little green light on Oliver's laptop across the room had been glowing the entire time. That night, Oliver played it back for me. Gary's voice filled the kitchen like a cold draft under the door. You're not safe. Oliver needs a real family. If she doesn't sign, the state decides. Clear, I see. No spin, proof. More than enough if we needed to show someone. Oliver sat pale in the screen's glow. Grandma, he's serious. I know, I said. That's why we're letting him talk. 2 days later, Gary came back, more impatient than ever. No smile this time. No pretense. He barged in and slammed another stack of documents on the table. Sign them, today. No more stalling. I let my hands tremble as I reached for the folder. He mistook it for weakness. Truth was, I'd never been more steady. Oliver shifted closer to me, subtle but protective. Gary caught it. "You're going to a facility," he snapped at me, then turned on Oliver. "And you, someone who knows what they're doing, will be responsible for you. You're both dead weight." Oliver's chair scraped hard against the floor as he stood. He opened his mouth, but I reached out and caught his sleeve, shook my head just once. He swallowed his words and sat back down. I opened the folder slowly, let my glasses slip down my nose. The words blurred by choice. I looked at Gary. "I'll think about it," I said. His face hardened. "You don't have time to think. These are already moving." He stormed out, slammed the door so hard the frame rattled. When the silence returned, Oliver whispered, "He thinks he's already won." I touched my hearing aid. "Good, that means he'll keep talking." Oliver nodded. "We've got enough, don't we?" "Not yet," I said. "We wait. Let him push harder. The harder he pushes, the clearer it all gets." Oliver leaned back in his chair and exhaled slow. "Then we wait." The folder still sat on the table between us like a loaded weapon. The fridge hummed. The clock ticked. Gary thought he was closing in. What he didn't know was that every step he took tightened the noose around his own neck. The email had already gone out. Oliver hit send. Not me. We sat side by side at the kitchen table, laptop screen glowing like a quiet witness. The files were all their recordings, screenshots, financial statements, adoption forms, every lie, every move, time-stamped and archived. After the whoosh of the email, the kitchen went still. Just the clock ticking, just the house waiting. 2 days later, the restraining order arrived. Thick paper, official, judge signed. Gary couldn't call, couldn't come near, couldn't touch a single account. Oliver read it over my shoulder. "So that's it?" he asked. "He's out of our lives." "On paper," I said, "but in real life." I didn't finish. We both understood. That evening, Ramirez from the precinct called. Her voice was calm, firm. "He's been served," she said. "If he shows up, call 911. Don't open the door," I thanked her. After I hung up, Oliver sat at the table with his phone, drumming a thumb along the edge. He didn't say it, but I saw the look in his eyes. He didn't trust Gary to stay away. Neither did I. So we got ready. I checked the side gate. He secured the back door. I wrote the case number on a sticky note and stuck it by the landline. He uploaded the latest audio to a USB and dropped it in the ceramic bowl by the car keys. I put water on for tea habit, not thirst. Bravery doesn't always show up with a roar. Sometimes it's just doing the dishes and waiting. We didn't turn on the TV that night. We just listened. The lemon tree tapped lightly on the window. The heater clicked on and off. We waited more. 9 o'clock. Then 9:30. Oliver opened his notebook, didn't draw, just stared at a blank page. I started to say, maybe Gary won't. Headlights swept across the living room wall. A car door slammed. Heavy footsteps crunched the gravel. Then came the pounding. "Mom, open the door." The chain rattled. The wood shook. Oliver froze. My hand found his arm without thinking. "You think a piece of paper can stop me?" Gary shouted. "I'm your son. You owe me this." He rattled the handle hard. Screws strained. My stomach went ice cold. The door frame trembled under his next hit. "Oliver," he barked. "You think you're safe, You're not. Families are waiting, good ones. You could have had a better life if she hadn't ruined it. The door jolted again. My hand trembled against Oliver's sleeve. For the first time, I wondered if the chain would hold. She's confused, Gary yelled. She doesn't know what's happening. I'm the only one actually doing something. Open the door, I whispered. He's going to break it. Oliver leaned closer. His voice was steady, a low murmur. Don't worry, Grandma. The police are already coming. I pinged them when I saw Dad was on his way. I blinked. Pinged? I set up a tracker. He said, on his phone. Installed it when he stayed here a while back. He never noticed. I saw him leave the bar tonight. I called before he even hit the street. The pounding continued, but my fear shifted. Not gone, but smaller. The boy had outmaneuvered his father. He'd outmaneuvered me too, Gary kept yelling. You think you can cut me out after everything I've done? She's going to a facility. You're going to a better home. This house is mine. You can't stop me. Every word hit the mic like a drumbeat. Oliver's phone buzzed. He glanced down. They're close. Sirens began low and distant, a hum under his father's fury. Gary slammed the door again. Mom, open this damn door. You don't have a choice. The sirens grew louder. Then lights flashed across the curtains, red and blue, bouncing over the walls. A voice barked through a loudspeaker. Police, step away from the door. Gary froze for a moment. Just one beat of silence. Then he turned toward the flashing lights outside. Arms up, voice raised. She's confused. He called out. She's not safe. I have the paperwork. Back up, an officer shouted. Hands behind your back. Gary tried to argue. Took half a step toward them like he could talk his way out of it. Bad move. 2 officers closed in fast, one on each arm. They twisted his wrists behind him, firm but clean. His mouth kept going, but the door chain didn't rattle anymore. Through the window, I saw his face under the red strobe of the cruiser lights. His voice cracked as he yelled my name, then Oliver's. Mom, tell them. Tell them I'm right. I didn't open the door. Didn't say a word. Neighbor's porch lights flicked on. Blinds shifted. People stared. He was led down the walkway like a man finally caught in his own net. Yelling, pleading, swearing. Then the car door slammed shut, and the cruiser pulled away. Lights bouncing off the lemon tree one last time before disappearing around the corner. The house went still again. Oliver leaned on the doorframe, pale but solid. His breath trembled once before he exhaled. Is it over? He asked. For tonight, I said. He nodded. That's enough. A gentle knock came a few minutes later. Not a bang, just a soft rap. One of the officers stood on the porch. Young, steady-eyed. Yes, I said. Through the chain. Mrs. Thompson, yes. Your son has been taken into custody for violating the restraining order. Are you safe tonight? We are. Any medical concerns? No. We'll need a short statement. Through the chain is fine. I told him what happened. That Gary pounded on the door. That he screamed threats. That he said he was taking Oliver and putting me in a facility. The officer scribbled it all down. He'll be charged. Thank you, I said. He nodded once and stepped off the porch. Near midnight, another knock, this time even quieter. Same officer. Just wanted you to know, he said, standing back respectfully. He's booked. Charges are being processed. Detectives will handle the financial and adoption fraud next. You'll be contacted with updates. Try to rest tonight. Thank you, I said. He gave a small salute, like muscle memory from a cap he wasn't wearing. We'll be patrolling nearby. We locked the door, turned off the lights. The house let out a breath. It felt like it had been holding it for weeks. I placed the hearing aid case back on the kitchen table. Turned off the lamp. Outside, the porch was empty. The lemon tree brushed the window one last time. Then silence. I didn't sleep all at once. But I slept. In the morning, everything felt plain again. Just the mail on the porch, the kettle on the stove. Oliver padded in, his hair wild on one side. "Cereal?" he asked. "There's some," I said. We ate at the table with our elbows out. No shouting at the door. At 9:30, the phone rang. It was Ramirez again. "Your bank's frozen the unauthorized transfers," she said. "Detectives have requested records from the adoption agency and the realtor. We'll be in touch. If anyone contacts you about any paperwork, forward it." "Do not reply." "Understood," I said. "You did the right thing," she said gently. Oliver went back to his homework. I rinsed the mugs. The squirrel danced along the fence. The lemon tree swayed in the breeze. The quiet was back, but it was the good kind. The kind that means you're safe again. I slid the restraining order into a clear plastic sleeve and tucked it into a binder labeled ** House Legal. **. We placed it next to the cookbook somewhere we'd always remember. Later, I made tea and took it out to the back steps. The sun touched my knees. The yard looked steady. Oliver pushed open the screen door behind me. "If he calls from jail," he asked, "do we answer?" "No," I said. He nodded. Okay. He let the door shut gently behind him. I stayed outside for a while. The day looked normal. That was the win. Not fireworks, not a parade, just peace. Inside, the clock ticked. The hearing aid case sat in the center of the kitchen table, quiet and still. I picked it up, checked the battery, set it back down. For the first time in a long time, tomorrow didn't feel like a cliff. This house was ours again, not because Gary was gone. He'd been absent plenty of times before. It was the quiet that told me the truth. The kind of quiet that didn't wait for a knock or a call or footsteps in gravel. Just stillness. Oliver noticed it too. He started leaving his bedroom door open at night again, like he used to when he was younger. Not because he was scared, because he didn't need to be anymore. A week after Gary's arrest, the bank called. The transfers had been blocked, flagged as fraud, and every dollar was safe. The agency sent a letter official, curt. They'd never heard from me directly. Their file was closed. The realtor backed out the moment detectives showed up asking questions. It was like watching a storm roll out over the hills. You still hear the thunder in the distance, but the rain has stopped hitting your roof. Oliver kept tinkering, not with trackers, that had been deleted the night Gary was booked. He started helping the neighbors instead. Mrs. Greer, 2 doors down, couldn't figure out her Wi-Fi. He had it working in 20 minutes. She paid him in oatmeal cookies. He sat with Mr. Alvarez across the street and taught him how to video call his daughter in Arizona. Word gets around, Oliver said with a small grin. Soon he was carrying a little notebook with names and requests. People in the neighborhood would wave him down. "Can you look at my phone? My printer won't print." He wrote them down like he was running his own shop. He never asked for money, said it didn't feel right. They paid him anyway in pies, in lasagna, in a pair of mittens 2 sizes too big. One night, I asked him, "Are you sure you don't want to charge something for this?" He shrugged. I just like helping. It's fun. And it was. I saw that light in his eyes again, the same one from the night he soldered my hearing aid back to life. The same light that saved us. I got fitted for new hearing aids later. Professional ones, sleek, custom molded, crystal clear. But I kept Oliver's version too. It sits in the top drawer of my desk, not for use, just as a reminder. That little piece of plastic and wire turned into armor when I needed it most. And the boy who fixed it became something more than I ever expected. Sometimes I'd catch him watching me over dinner. When he was little, that look meant curiosity. Now it meant something steadier, like he was making sure I was still okay. And for the first time, I realized it wasn't just me protecting him anymore. He was protecting me too. The news ran a small piece about Gary, local man charged with elder fraud and attempted illegal adoption. His mugshot appeared between car insurance ads and weekend weather. I didn't watch the whole thing. Didn't need to. People around town whispered. Some crossed the street when they saw me. Others just shook their heads. I didn't explain. Didn't owe them that. We're fine, I said. And we were. One evening after dinner, Oliver asked me quietly, "Do you think he'll come back?" I didn't hesitate. "Not here," I said. "Not to this house." He nodded, like he'd been waiting for me to say it out loud. Life carried on in small, quiet ways. We cooked together, argued about folding towels the right way, laughed at the lemon-shaped magnet on the fridge that held tighter than any of the new ones. It was enough. That's my story. If you were in my shoes, would you have trusted Oliver's plan with the hearing aid or confronted Gary directly? Let me know in the comments and subscribe if you'd like to hear more stories like mine. There's a lot left to live for, and sometimes it's the quiet that saves you.